What's up, everyone? Welcome to Unmasked, where things are discovered, uncovered, brought to the light, and made known. I'm your host, Lamar Barrett, coming live to you from PG County, Maryland. If you're interested in finding out about the untold stories behind being a college coach, this is the show for you. Being a former assistant men's college basketball coach for 16 years, there are so many untold stories behind the scenes in the life of a college basketball coach. Now, let's unmask them. Today's guest is a longtime assistant coach, a bright basketball mind, and an excellent talent evaluator. Also, he's relentless, and I don't like to use this terminology, but I know he does a tremendous job of recruiting as well. He's done a great job of, like I said, talent evaluator, but then also bringing those kids in to be able to coach them. He's an outstanding mentor for young coaches in the business, and he's a Philadelphia native, Dino Presley. Now, Dino, a little bit about Dino before we bring him on. He, like I said, a native of Philadelphia, played at Kutztown University for 2 years, realized what he really wanted to do, and he knew that was coaching. And so he did a little bit of student assistant coaching for 2 years at Kutztown. And then from there, he had a chance to go back to Philly and in Philly and coaching the Southern Hill League. And then he had a chance to go to Hampton University. And he was there for 1 year at Hampton University, and then came back home, and he began coaching at his high school, Parkway High School, and coaching in the Southern Hill League, the famous Southern Hill League, where a lot of lessons are taught down there. So I'm sure he learned a lot while he was doing that. And then from there, he goes over to Drexel University, where he's there for 4 years at Drexel University. I know he started off with Billy Harrion there, for a couple of years before Billy left to go to East Carolina. But then he stayed on at Drexel. And that's why I actually got a chance to first meet Dino, and he recruited one of my players and landed one of my players. And so the relationship was built back 20 years ago now, which is amazing. 20 years ago now. And then from there, after Drexel, he goes to Towson, had a chance to work for Mike Hunt for a couple of years before going back to work with Billy Harrion at East Carolina for a couple of years. And then from East Carolina, he goes and worked with a good friend of his, Randall Monroe, that he had probably known for a long time at UMBC, probably all of 9 months before landing the job at St. Bonaventure with Anthony Solomon, who's now associate head coach at Dayton, before working with Mark Schmidt, who's now still the current head coach at St. Bonaventure, who's doing a tremendous job there. And then he goes to Marshall. So he gets a chance to work with the brother of Billy Harrion. He works for Tommy Harrion at Marshall for 4 years before going to NJIT and working with Jim Ingles. And then Presley, he's at Rider University with Kevin Baggett, where he has spent, this is going on year 6 now. The last 2 years, he's been the associate head coach, close to home. They're successful. They're winning. But I want to welcome to the show a longtime friend. I was talking about it earlier, 20 years. Welcome to the show, Dino.
Thanks, Lamar. We call you LB. Thanks, LB. Appreciate it.
Hey, man, I'm glad. It's been a while. I've been wanting to get you on. I know it's interesting. Like you say, I don't want to get 2 guys from a staff, but I've been like waiting to try to get you on to come on to the show. And I just want to say, man, we're going to get right to it and get unmasked.
Okay.
Ton of questions. You've been in this for, man, like I read that list, but even though the 1 year at Hampton, and then you talk about from 97 to 2020, you talk about 23, 24 years in the business.
Long time.
And the thing about it is, you've never had, I knock on wood, like you haven't gone without a job. That's a plus too. Like, that's another thing. Like a lot of guys don't do that. Like, so you got to think, you like, hey man, like you've done a great enough job at places that no matter what happens, you're well respected in this business, and guys, they call and, hey, you're going to end up on the staff because you've done a great job and you have a ton of respect in this business. So I will say that before we even get started.
Yeah, I'm less than 40. Trust me.
So the first question I always like to ask, man, like, and this is going way back, and it could have been any time where you started at these different places. There's no handbook to being a college coach, and that doesn't matter what sport that is. Tell me about your first day. Could be the first week, first month. after things are done with human resources and orientation, especially when no one gives you direction, man. What was that like?
When I first started off at Drexel, I had resources and direction. And then you go over at Towson. I got the job at Towson University when it was a new coach, new staff. That first week, man, you don't know nobody there. You're going over to the human resources department. You don't even know how to get there, first of all. You're calling them on the phone to go try to do your paperwork and all that, and then trying to meet people, meet the AD, meet an academic advisor. And I think that's the tough part when you're taking over a job with a new staff and a new head coach, man. That's the hardest part, you know.
Yeah, I feel you about that. That is, just you saying, like, you just trying to figure out, like, first of all, the head spinning, then you got to figure out it's a new environment. So I trust me. I've been there. I understand that. I definitely.
You don't know nobody neither. And a lot of folks, when you get new jobs, people are helpful. They try to help you out, so.
I'm gonna ask you a question because I mentioned recruiting. I don't ever label you as recruiter. I label you as a basketball coach. I think you've done enough outstanding work, whether it was on the court, off the court with these guys, recruiting, like teaching. I mean, that's what we are, educators. Like, what was your best and worst recruiting story? You've been in it for a while, so I'm sure you got something that's like, dang, I can't believe, like, your best recruiting story, whether it was getting a kid or something that happened on a visit, anything that happened. Like, what was your best and worst recruiting story?
I've probably had a lot, but I'm gonna take Phil Goss from Oxon Hill, 1999, right? 1999, got the NUM, 2001, 2001. We started recruiting him as a sophomore going into his junior year. You was the assistant coach at Oxon Hill. Used to go down there and watch him play when I first got on the road at Drexel, 1999, trying to get to know you and everything. But Phil started playing well at Hoop Group, College in New Jersey, us, Drexel University, James Madison, Dayton. Those was the three final schools. And I told Coach Seymour, I said, there's no way we're getting Phil Goss. He played well, wound up making the top 20 All-Star game, right, Coach? And
yes, he did.
I'm down at the camp. I'm talking to you every day. Wasn't supposed to talk to you. You're coaching, but I'm visible. Coach Seymour, we're there. We go back in August. I'll never forget that. We chop our guys down, and I was like, Coach Seymour, this is going to be tough. But we stayed in there. We stayed into the grind. I remember he wound up going to James Madison. James Madison at the time was going to the Colonial. We were still in the American East. And we were just selling on him the opportunity to come play at Drexel. We were great to go to the Colonial at the time. And it was close to home. We had some DMV guys on our team and everything. And Phil came for his visit in September. I'll never forget. I took him came on a Thursday, left on a Saturday. He wound up coming back on his official visit and wound up committing to us because guys did a good job on our team, showing them around, hosting them and all that. And Phil was getting recruited. That was early on. He was getting recruited by some A-10 schools. And you guys had a very good team, man. Lamar Butler, who went over to George Mason. That backcourt was tremendous. You guys would play Roosevelt, all the teams down in DMV. And I thought that kind of helped my career. Phil Goss. We had Robert Bad and all that when I first got the Drexel and everything, but Phil was kind of one of the guys that helped me down in the DMV area and kind of was a staple where I started recruiting that area hard, with the help of you.
No, and it was the best fit. And you said something that was interesting was Phil was on his visit. I called him that Saturday to say, what do you think? He said, Coach, I love it. I said, so what time you getting, what time is your ride? He said, Coach, I'm leaving campus and I'm then I'm coming back, but I'm gonna stay another night because this is where I think I'm gonna go to school. I was like, hey man, enjoy it. I remember the phone call. So I want to say Ashley Howard may have been the guy who was his host that day. So
Sean Brooks. Sean
Oh,
was just,
well, I know Sean
yeah,
Brooks
yeah,
was there already, but for some reason, him and Ashley Howard connected too, I believe. I don't know how, but they did.
yeah. No, but that kind of helped my career. He could have played in the A10. You know, at the time, Drexel was in American East. So to get a kid over Colonial School and the A10 school, and Dayton at the time was really good. Dayton, go to Dayton or go to Drexel. I mean, I thought that was a big time gift for us. And Phil went on to have a great career, was all conference player in the Colonial, all-time leading scorers at Drexel, wound up graduating and then playing overseas for years. He just retired, right? So good kid, got his degree, that's what it's about, man. You know?
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and you still talk about him was he called me 2 days ago, and he was just talking about how proud he was of me for doing this. Like, you know what I'm saying? So that's how great of a kid he is. Like, and I'm like, yo, man, I'm proud of you because of what you're doing. He's doing some other things. You know, he was coaching in the G League this year, but he got some other business opportunities. And like, it was just that's the type of kid he is. We've always had a great relationship. And that was interesting when he called me the other day to just say how proud of he was of me, but that tells you how much he matured over the years.
Maturity level, yeah. But he was a great kid, and I always talk about those Rock League games in the summer. You know what I mean? We were down there for 2 years trying to recruit him, and Manhattan was recruiting Delonte West. You know, Coach Larinaga was recruiting Lamar. We used to all be in the parking lot. All right, who you talking to next? You know what I mean? But those was great times, man. That Rock League was a very good league, man. You had all those DMV schools playing in that summer league, man. So
it was great league, man.
Yep.
Anything that you sat there and said, man, what about recruiting that's been like, I did a great job, or it just wasn't a good fit, or about recruiting, anything like that you looked at, it's like, now it don't have to be the worst, but some stories like, you might have missed out on the kid, or something like that.
I'll tell you, this incident happened probably about 2 years, last year actually, where we were recruiting a kid, a local kid, and we offered them early, recruited them for his junior year, summer recruiting, visible, building a relationship with his AAU high school guy, and wound up not even getting a visit. And you go back and say, what did I do wrong? What did I did wrong? And the thing that stuck in my mind was during the fall recruiting period, we go out to recruit him, local high school, yada, yada. Make a long story short, the kid wanted to play at a higher level. And I think you guys was recruiting the kid too. You know what I mean? But
I remember that situation.
We offered the kid his junior year. I knew his AAU coach, who's a good friend of mine, but I didn't know the high school coach had more influence than the AAU coach. You know what I mean? So it was a disconnection on my part, I thought, in our staff part. You know what I mean? But the kid visited us. We thought we had a great shot. Then at the end of the day, it was like we had no shot. And you look back at it like, yo, we did A, B, C, D. But it wasn't good enough. You know, and I felt some type of way because at the time, and for the most part, when we go into Philly, we could probably get the kids that's on our level, we're going to have a shot at them. You know what I mean? At least get them on campus. You know what I mean? And we're trying to recruit a Colonial or a low A10 guy. And this kid was an A10 player. You know what I mean? I thought if he would have came with us, he would have had a great career because he was tough. But for the most part, when we go into Philly, man, we'll have a chance to get a kid. And we didn't get this kid for official visit. That kind of hurt us. Like, it stung us, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I remember the kid who you're talking about. That's why we won't say names, but like he did almost everything opposite.
Absolutely.
That he said he wanted to do. You know what I'm saying? Like he actually wanted to play for an African American head coach. That didn't happen. He wanted to get out of the city of Philly. Absolutely. That didn't happen. You know what I'm saying? So it was like everything he said, it never.
He went the opposite. You know what I mean? And just you just hit on the head. Playing for African American coach, we had all black staff. You know what I mean? We could have been great role models, mentors for the kid, just to try to help him. And we knew his situation. You know, I grew up in the inner city. He was from the north part of the town. You know what I mean? But just certain kids that just tell you things, and then and we know those type of kids, and then they do the opposite. You know what I mean? But that one stung because we spend a lot of time. We were visible. You guys was visible, but I thought we were more visible than you guys. You know, to trust me, because I knew the whole landscape. During this high school season, we were
You even
visible.
knew we were coming into Philly. That's the
I had it down, man. I knew what coaches was coming in and all. You know what I mean? But in the end of the day, he picked a school that was a higher level also. So and I get the levels. You know what I mean? But this is where the game is met. Kids are going higher, and those kids don't. They're not playing at those levels. We know we've been in the game long enough, man, in the profession.
So true, so true. Well, I'm gonna ask you this because you've been, married. You got you've been married, and you are married, and you have a daughter and a son, and I like to ask this question just because I don't think, and this is more for teaching, because I don't think a lot of people understand this business a lot of times. Like, what did you have to sacrifice to achieve your current level of success?
I tell you what, as you get older, and with this COVID, you think you sit back and reflect on a lot of things. I sacrificed my marriage, first of all, you know what I mean? Because you try to be the best husband, but you can't because you're missing birthdays, you're missing other holidays, and you sacrifice. Your wife is sacrificing her career for your career. My wife, she's a nurse. She was a former school teacher, but she put her career on hold to help me. With all these moves that I've made. I made about 6 or 7 moves. Moving to different states, but also your children as they get older, man. And the one thing when I left Marshall and we came back to Jersey, I was at NJIT for a year, and my daughter left West Virginia, and she was crying because she had established a lot of friends. And I remember that first day, she didn't want to get on the bus. The first day going to 8th grade, and that touched me. So I made a pact with her. I was involved with other jobs over the last couple of years, and I told my daughter, I will allow you to finish high school. I told her that, and now those are her friends for the rest of her life at Saraville Memorial High School. So that one thing right there stuck out, and sometimes you got to put yourself last. You know what I mean? And I was putting myself first for the first 15, 18 years in my profession. So end of the day, man, you got to look out for your family. You know what I mean? And I'll tell a lot of guys that, but my wife, she knows the business. She's very supportive. But like, you making these moves and you don't understand the effect that it have on your kids. You understand? And that's one thing coming to Jersey, we're closer to home now, to Philadelphia, closer to our families and all. So it's been the last 6 years that Ryder has been great. My daughter, she's at Temple University. She didn't want to go far away because she wanted to be closer to home and all that. So that was the one thing that stuck out when I left Marshall University, coming back home, man, where like, you sacrifice a lot, but you also haven't been around because you're going on recruiting trips. You know what I mean? 2 or 3 days. Her birthday's in July. My wife's birthday is July 13th, 12th. My daughter's birthday is July 29th. So I'm never around in July. You know what I mean? So you know how that. Then you come off the road, you got to make it up to them and all that, or you go buy gifts and bring it home. So that was a tough part. You know what I mean? But like, my wife has been really supportive over the last 23 years, man. So I have a good wife.
Awesome, man. Shout out to Mrs. Tanya. I definitely got to acknowledge that. Trust me. I know what you mean. My wife used to rub that in. I removed 5 or 6 times. And like you said, her birthday is in July. So trust me, I deal with the same thing you do.
We were in the doghouse a lot, brother, right? But some areas I had to move to, like Olean, New York, Huntington, West Virginia, like it was tough on her. You know what I mean? Just
you lived in some tough spots. That's a little different. You lived in some tough spots. What was because we all know this too, man. Scouting reports are like, man, it's like gold. And you try to give kids enough so they can be successful. I mean, that's what people don't understand. These kids are in class, they worry about schoolwork, they got all this other stuff going on. but you try to make it as successful as possible. Like keep it simple to them, but at the same time, and I thought about this, Dino, because we put in all this, we prepare. You know, we watching 7, 8 games, putting all this information in, like making sure we have everything ready for us. And then you want to try to get them as much as you can, but if you give them too much, that's overload. So, but you got to make sure you're prepared for everything. So, talk about something like over the years, but been your best, and then also your worst scout report, because we all know no matter who you work for, you can have everything right on the scout report, game plan going right, and then guys still go out and they may not execute the game plan. I mean, or like you've said things like, coach is turning around like, yo, you said that that guy wasn't a shooter. Coach, I didn't say he was a shooter. I just say he hadn't been making shots, but coach is always gonna point out stuff if you're not on top of your game. And then like you could have just the worst scout report and guys play their best game. I mean, it happens at times. So what do you think over the years, like what's been your best and your worst scouting report?
I think some of the scouting reports that I've done, when I first got into the business, I was at Drexel and had some very good coaches in the league. And I'll never forget, we played BU and it was my scout. And Dennis Wolf is a very good coach. And they ran a ton of box sets, 2-3 sets. And so we play him. It was my second year. And he completely changed from his 1-4 stuff to went 2-3 high sets. And we didn't have that in. I didn't have it in. And I got reamed out. I went all over the 1-4 sets and the box sets, but he started the game off in the 2-3 scissor action with the pen downs, yada, yada. Make a long story short, man, Billy jumped me the beginning of the game. We didn't prepare for this, yada, yada, yada. And Dennis Wolf, a very good coach, he ran a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? And that was kind of thing like, yo, man, you better have your stuff together. That's when I always go back and I might watch 6 to 7 tapes when I do scouting reports. And I think that kind of prepared me because Billy was a guy at Drexel kind of got me involved with the scouts. I used to get there early when I first started working for him, and he would get in office every day at 8 o'clock. First thing we'd do, we'd get some breakfast and I'm watching film with him from like 8 to about 11. Then we go play noontime hoops, come back at 1, put our practice schedule together. But he was the guy that I kind of learned from him, Coach Seymour and Coach John O'Connor. And then when I wound up going to Towson, where me and Coach Senderoff, he had the defense, I had the offense, But the scouting reports, we had so much input. Well, we put everything in. Coach Hunt gave us the freedom, and I, mind you, Lamar, I was probably going to my 5th year of coaching, and he gave us a lot of leeway with the scouting reports. And coming from Drexel, where we put everything in, we had a new team where I was like, Coach, he only wanted to put like 5 things in, but I was so used to putting like 8, 9, 10 offensive sets, and then side out of bounds, under out of bounds unders. So we kind of tailed down because he was at a high major where them dudes put like 5 things in, and they might have went 2 out of bounds unders, and they go over the press, boom, boom, and then you're ready to go. So I kind of had to get used to that, man. You know what I mean? And then I worked for Mark Smith. Coach Mark Smith wanted everything in the scouting report. Jimmy Ingle.
Did he have about 55, 60 plays that he actually ran? He had a ton.
It's funny, Lamar, where he's a great offensive-minded coach. Like, he would put stuff in, man. You might have a box 1-4. He got a counter to everything. I used to call him Bill Belichick. So if you go on the road recruiting for a day or two, you might come back, and it might be 10 new plays in. So my playbook was like this. You know what I mean? And you couldn't remember all that. I was still young, but like, yo, as I stayed with him for a year, over the last couple of years, man, where the stuff clicks. And our guys, what he did was, because kids learn different. Every morning from September to November, our guys got up at 6 o'clock and we dummied our offensive sets. That's how they knew it. And assistant coaches was there. Like, we dummied our offensive sets. Monday through Friday. And then when we started practice, man, guys would go through it, boom, boom, boom. So like I learned from him, like far as not overloading the kids, but like just trying to get them to go a little harder and lock in, to be honest, because we had a lot of sets in. And Jimmy Ingles was the same way. When I went there, he ran all that Princeton action with the counters and the reads off of that, man. So that was one of the things I learned from those two guys as far as offensively.
Awesome. What's the biggest challenge you think you've experienced since you've been in college coaching?
I think the biggest challenge is when you get fired, man. We've all been there, you know what I mean? And it's not just the head coach who gets fired. We look at that, but like you were a part of that. Those guys get their money. You don't. You might have to go get unemployment. And I've been blessed and fortunate every time I've been let go. I've found a way to get rehired and obtain a new job. But like I think the biggest thing is when you get fired, man, you start second guessing yourself. To be honest with you, we've all been there, and the older you get, it's tough in this business. Like when you get fired at a young age, oh man, I could bounce back. So as you get older, man, and you get in your late 40s, early 50s, if you get fired, you might not get a job again. You know what I mean? And that's the thing that hurts us. You know what I mean? We don't get a second chance after we get a head coaching job or when we get fired as assistant when we're older. So I think that's the biggest challenge in college athletics for Black assistant coaches and head coaches, as far as getting another opportunity. And that's the fear factor. I know when a lot of guys get head coaching jobs, man, I don't want this to be my last. You know what I mean? But like, yo, man, it's tough. I don't want this to be my last assistant job. You know what I mean? So.
No, that's good stuff. You're 100% right. And I'm gonna ask you this: do you ever find that there are things about you that people misunderstand? What are they?
I think they look at me as a recruiter. I've been in the game for 23 years. I know how to X and O. I know how to run a practice. You know what I mean? I know how to do administrative things. You know what I mean? Because Bags has us all involved. You know what I mean? For on campus. So when they we get labeled a lot, Lamar. You know what I mean? Oh, he could just recruit, or they'll hire you as one of the Black assistants. Where okay, I don't want you doing no scouting reports. And I've been fortunate. Everywhere I've been allowed to do scouting reports. I've been allowed to develop players. I've been involved in game planning, which is pretty good. So you continue to do that. You grow as a basketball coach, but we get labeled a lot, man, and it's unfortunately, and then we don't get opportunities. You know what I mean?
So true. That's so true, man. I agree with you 100%. Like I said before, man, we're all educators. Your wife is a former teacher, and in the basketball court, I mean, that's like it's like a classroom, not just on the court, but off the court as well. But like, what do you try to teach your players or educate your players on besides basketball?
The one thing when I recruited a young man, I try to be truthful with him first of all. You know what I mean? Because end of the day, the ball gonna stop bouncing. You know what I mean? Everybody want to go to the league. Everybody want to go overseas. But end of the day, man, we've all been there. You have to get your degree. When our last group at Ryder, we did a good job. All those guys that came in the Ryder, all those guys have graduated. And, we stay on them academically. You know what I mean? And they might not like it. And they might not realize, yeah, Coach P's always on me. You're going to do your work here. You know what I mean? You're going to get your degree, and we have a good rapport with the parents. So when stuff go down, we can relate to the parents. Hey, he had to be in study hall. His grades are slipping, but like you try, you don't want these guys to be a number. Always tell guys, don't let basketball use you. You have to use it. And that means getting your degree. And at the end of the day, Lamar, we know that we're old enough now, man, where we have degrees. You know what I mean? We could provide for our families, and that ball's gonna stop bouncing. Your overseas job might end like that. As long as I got my degree, I could go get a job. And that's what it's about, man. Seeing guys get degrees and go on to be productive citizens in our country, man. You know.
Awesome. And I'm gonna pick it back off of that because this may even play. It may play hand in hand. But like, what's your biggest accomplishment you have experienced since you have become a college coach?
I think the one thing is seeing guys graduate, man. You know what I mean? Guys coming from the inner city, guys coming from single parent homes, where some guys come to college and they get labeled like, yo, he's not gonna make it. And we had a kid at Ryder. It came up on a unofficial visit, and somebody on our staff said this kid will never graduate. Mm. And that stuck with me. You understand? And this kid wound up graduating with a decent GPA, was all conference guy, yada yada. And that stuck with me. And I told the kid that. I said, yo, man, and the kid was from the inner city of Philadelphia. I said, you're up here. People don't even think you're gonna graduate. You understand? And Lamar, he wound up graduating. And he was a good student. He pushed himself, got better academically, and he worked at it. You know what I mean? And that's one of the things where you look at kids, when you bring kids in and you recruit them and you try to be a mentor and a role model. That's the biggest achievement, seeing them walk down the aisle with that piece of paper, man. That's what it's about. You know?
I agree with you 100%. You know, you're gonna win a ton of games. You're gonna have a chance, but like your job as a coach, at the end of the day, you want to try to, you want them to be a professional or go out into the real world. But like that, the pleasure of seeing them graduate, when, like you said, odds are stacked against them, that could be the biggest accomplishment, man. Mm-hmm. Like you just, like graduation day, you just so happy for them. Yeah. Because you looked at when they first came in, and you know you had a big part in it. And that's why people always ask me, like, you know, why do you coach? And I'm like, because I want to be an impact on those young men. That's their most formidable years. You know, like that's from 18 to 22, 23 years old. Decisions got to be made. Like when you from 8 up to 18 years old, parents did a great job, and most of them did a great job. But now it's your chance to be an impact on those kids' lives. You know, like you're and I say Rary, your son and daughter, you're doing a good job, but you're gonna trust someone else to like make sure that these gonna be some big years in their lives. You're there, but you've done your job. You know, and that's the big thing.
That's part of the growth part where we bring these guys in at 18 years old. We want these guys to be young men when they graduate, man. And that's what we always stress, man. That you're going to come in as a boy, you're going to leave as a young man. You know what I mean? And you see that, man. All right, I did my job, you know?
That's it. I'm going to ask you this. It's funny. Like I said, you've seen a lot. And we don't have to name names on this, but what is the strangest or weirdest thing a player has done outside of the basketball court?
You talk. I was at Marshall University. we're getting ready to fly back to West Virginia. Our players don't show up on the bus. That was tough. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
You said the strangest thing. And that was, I was around 15, 17, and I've never seen nothing like that. You know what I mean? I'm like, wow.
The whole team?
Just a couple.
Okay.
I'm not going to say where they was at or not. You got to mute that, brother. You know?
That I can understand now. Like I just like, I would think that's very strange that guys don't show up to the bus. But, like,
and for the most part, wherever I've been, we've had guys that, for the most part, we have some discipline. We have discipline. You know what I mean? But that right there, and I wasn't accustomed to that. You know what I mean?
I get you.
I've seen a lot in 20 some years.
Yeah, enough said. And you were at, because you had some characters at Marshall. We're not gonna say no things, but y'all had some characters, and I mean it's just a different place. I mean, that's the whole thing, being there. But that is one that's very strange and don't show up. And I like to ask this, like, and this is kind of, it throws you off a little bit, but it makes you think. So now we're coming out of, like the pandemic is still going on, but it's probably a different answer now than it was a year ago. But like, what movie or TV show title best describes your week?
My weakness?
What movie or TV show title best describes your week?
Actually, you know what I was watching a lot. I watched CNN a lot. that was my TV. I'm not a big TV guy, to be honest with you. I'm more of a news guy. You know what I mean? But CNN, because of the COVID and all that, I was watching that a lot. I probably watched that several times, several hours a day. You know what I mean? So, and Housewives, Atlanta. The medicine, Doctors of Atlanta. My family had me watching that at night. My daughter, my wife. It
sounds like my wife. She watches that, so I know exactly what you're talking about. But I can CNN. I've never been a political guy, but probably for the last year and a half, my channel doesn't move off of CNN or NBC, one of the two. And when I'm in the car on Sirius Radio, it was on channel 116 CNN, because I really didn't know what was going to happen from day to day with the guy that was in the White House. So it was and like you talked about with the COVID as well, but like, it was just interesting to see the guy, 45. It was unbelievable, like, and I saw Van Jones breakdown the other day, and that's how a lot of people felt in this world. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not shocked, but I can add with the CNN. I agree with you 100%. I watched it a lot. My wife was like, "That's all you watch." I was like,
I got Coach. I got into it, man. But you want to know what was going on in the world, to be honest with you. And I'm back home now, so I watch ABC News. That's Philadelphia news. I had to stop watching ABC News to turn on CNN. You know what I mean? But like, just to stay abreast of what's going on in our world.
Correct. What's your favorite word or phrase you like to use? Like, whether it's around the players, like what do you like to use?
Professionalism.
Okay, I like that.
And we've been talking, and then accountability. Those are two words that I kind of use.
Okay, I like that. Professionalism, accountability. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Look out for yourself. Because you got to understand, in this profession, right? We always looking out for our players, our bosses, and the guys we work for. You know what I mean? But like, it was probably about 10 years ago, a former assistant coach that I worked for, he told me, "Yo, man, you better look out for yourself, because when you get fired, who's going to look out for you?" And that stuck with me when I got fired at Marshall. You understand?
Yeah.
So he told me that 10 years. He said, "Yo, man, in this profession, you got to look out for yourself." And you don't realize that, because all right, you got to recruit. You got to make sure the players are taken care of. Do your job to make sure that the program's going well and the players are academically successful. You know what I mean? Making sure they're not doing nothing dumb on campus. You know what I mean? Just certain things like that. But he was like, "Yo, man, look out for yourself." You know what I mean? And that stuck with me. Because you're a young coach, you're trying to move up and all that, man. But when he said that, I'm like, "Yo, man, that's facts."
That definitely is fact. That definitely is facts, Dino. I totally agree with you. Because we do tend to like look out, like, you in a job, you got an opportunity to go somewhere, but you say, man, I brought this kid in. I can't leave the kid right now. But if that kid wanted to leave that school, he ain't thinking about you. You know what I'm saying? Like, he ain't gonna come to you and say, Coach, man, I'm really thinking about, like, he's gonna do what he want to do anyway.
Absolutely.
And if the head coach wants to leave and don't decide to take you, he's gonna do what he wants to do anyway. So, I totally agree with you. I agree with that statement. I mean, that's some good advice. What does success mean to you?
Success is not about winning games. You know what I mean? I look at when as an overall program, if your players are graduating, you bringing your guys in, guys are not getting in trouble. You know what I mean? You're in probably top half of your league. And we've kind of done that at Ryder over the last 5 or 6 years. We've had a lot of success. You know what I mean? But our players graduate. We've probably been top 4 or 5 in our league the last couple of years, and our guys develop and get better on and off the court. So that I look at that as success, the overall success, and guys graduating. You know what I mean? You put that in one pile. Look, he's like, yo, man, we've done a good job with those three or four things. I think, and then your coach is winning. But the overall success of a program is really not about winning games. But the administration might look at that. You know what I mean? But like, we've been here 6 years at Ryder. We've had the winningest record in the MAC for the last 5 years. Baggs is all-time winningest coach right now in the MAC. But we've done a good job, and it kind of gets overlooked. Tim Cluse is no longer at Iona, but he did a hell of a job. But like, in end of the day, the overall success of your program, you know what I mean? And then sustaining it is hard on this level, on the mid-major level. Like, when you win, we've had 3 or 4 good seasons. Now we have a whole new team, Lamar, where now we got to build it over. Now with the new transfer rule and all that, guys are transferring. We lost 2 of our top players to high major schools this past year. So if those guys stayed with us, we'd have been probably picked 1 or 2 in the MAC this year. So that's the hard part, looking at the overall success of your program, and then it's really hard maintaining it. And you've been around, you know how hard it, and winning is hard.
Winning is very hard. That's what people don't understand. Winning is very hard.
I've played in 2 championship games, conference championship games, to get to that NCAA tournament. Never got there. Been to 2 NITs, man. So it tells you how hard it is. You know what I mean? I've probably had 20 10-game winning seasons. You know what I mean? So it's hard, man. And then just trying to like sustain it.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. Well, look, you've never been a self-promoter. That's one thing you haven't been. You let your work speak for itself. So I'm gonna give you an opportunity now. If you had to choose 3 adjectives that describe yourself, which would you choose?
Hardworking, dedication, relentless.
Relentless, I definitely agree with. I agree with all 3, but you are definitely relentless, which I say that. I definitely say that. Those are 3 great ones. 3 great ones. Which defines success. And like you said, it don't have to translate to wins, but it defines success. Every one of those.
And you talk about the self-promoting, and I've never been one to self-promote, the Twitter, this and that. But that's the new wave, and it's more for the younger guys and all that. But I think the older guys, we have to do a better job with it. Lamar, I'm just not into it, to be honest with you. I'm not going to self-promote. You see all these guys that self-promoting themselves and all that, but like, yo, they're self-promoting, but I know I'm better than them. Guys that self-promoting haven't had winning seasons. You understand? Guys that
exactly. Oh yeah, exactly.
Guys that
but think they deserve a job, like a job.
But guys that promoting themselves, they've never recruited all conference guys. You know what I mean? They've had losing records. You know what I mean? So all that, when you're going to self-promote, okay, look at a guy's body of work. Look at his track record. You know what I mean? And that's what some of these guys don't do. You know what I mean? And I'm not big on the Twitter, I'm just not into it. You know what I mean? That might hurt me, but I'm good. I'm okay with it, Lamar. To be honest with you,
I feel you. I definitely feel you.
I don't have to please that man. You know what I mean? I'm not into that. You know what I mean? So
I'm gonna ask you this: what person and or event has had the most influence on your life?
what person? I'm gonna go with my mother, my mom who passed away when I was a sophomore in college. I mean, she had a major impact on me to where I am now. You know, her values that she instilled in me at a young age. You know, so I'm gonna go with my mother, and then with event, it started down in Sunny Hill League when I used to coach down there because John Harnett, he was the guy back in the day down. He was a fixture in Sunny Hill and helping guys get jobs. To be honest with you, he had Bruiser Flint, Jeff Arnold, Monte Ross, and I kind of was the next guy, and he got me my first Division I job. So I'm grateful to John for getting me my Drexel job. You know what I mean? So. And that what you said, the event. That's the event, the showdown in Philly, the Sunny Hill League.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you can't like that's a staple. Like if you talk Philly, like that's you got cheesesteaks, like you got the Liberty Bell, but Sunny Hill League is like you said, that's a staple of Philadelphia and so I totally agree with you. And John Harnett, who was a great guy.
Great.
So I mean, people, if you never got a chance to meet him, man, like he looked out for a lot of people. Not just training guys, but a lot of people. You talked about helping you get your first job. People don't know how huge. He was a legend. He was a legend.
That was AAU back in the day. So we talking about how these AAU guys are getting jobs now. John Harnett, the Sunny Hill League was like AAU back in the day. If guys would come into Philly, I would go to dinner with John Harnett at night. You know, he's in there talking to Calipari, Fang Mitchell. I'm in there with him till 1, 2 o'clock at night, man. So that kind of helped me learn the business a lot, just hearing stories from those older guys. You know what I mean? So,
I'm gonna ask you this: like you talked about it earlier, because we talk about it in this business. You stay in it long enough, you're gonna get fired. That's just what it is. But what was the most stressful situation you think you faced? And that may not be getting fired, but or what's the most stressful situation you faced since you've been in coaching?
I tell you what, it was the year we got fired at Drexel because my wife was pregnant with my daughter, Lamar, and I'll never forget it, where we lost to Northeastern in the tournament in the first round. And we kind of finished like third in the league that year, and we lost in the first round to Northeastern. And we came back Monday morning, and we thought we were all good. Coach Seymour had 7 more years left on his contract. He was there 2 years, had 2 winning seasons. And remind you, this is my 4th year in the business, and we got let go, man. And we got let go, and I was like crying. I'm like, yo, I thought I was gonna be in Philly the rest of my life, to be honest with you. But I had a daughter. My wife was like 9 months pregnant at the time, and I was like, yo, I got to get a job. You know what I mean? And it wasn't a lot of jobs available at the time, you know. And Kevin Brodus wound up going to GW. I'll never forget that. And Coach Orlando and Coach Wolf wound up getting me involved with American University, Jeff Jones, who you work for. And Jeff did the job, but he had to wait till Kevin Brodus get his paperwork ready for American University. I mean, for GW, when Kevin Brodus left American and went to GW. And I was so nervous, I wound up taking the Towson University job, which was probably $40,000 pay cut. American was paying like 85, Towson was paying 42 at the time. But I was so nervous, Lamar. Yo, I took Towson. Coach Hunt called me the day Jeff Jones was like, yo, just wait till Kevin, give me a day or so. but I wound up taking the Towson University job, man. How about that? So
Yeah.
like I had to look out for my family. You know what I mean? I was so nervous. My daughter was going to be born in another couple months. Where if this job don't come through, and if I don't get Towson, I don't have a job. You know what I mean? So I wound up taking the Towson job because I was nervous and I was antsy. You know. So.
Yeah, that's a tough decision you had to make. I mean,
Yep.
you know, and it's, you know, hey,
And
you was
it was
looking
a
at,
pay cut, major pay cut, because you worked at American, right?
yeah, I worked at America. I was there for 3 years. I was there for 3 years.
Yep.
Well, I'm gonna ask you this. I like to end on this note. Like, knowing what you know now, what would you tell your young or younger self to prepare for, you know, as an assistant coach or in this business altogether?
I think the way the landscape is now, I think you have to have more connections. You know what I mean? And I think you have to promote yourself more. You know, I probably should have done a better job, but I think as far as promoting yourself and aligning yourself up with some people, white assistant coaches, black assistant coaches, and instead of aligning yourself up with black assistant coaches. You know what I mean? I think you have to have a little bit of diversity in who you align yourself up with. Diversity. You know what I mean? So I think that's one of the things that I probably could have did a better job. You understand?
Yep.
And I did. and with the search firms and all that growth coming up, you know.
Yeah, I feel you on that. You're so right. Well, Dino, man, I want to thank you again for being a guest on the show and being unmasked. Is there anything you want to leave with the people before we go? Like some nugget, some jewel you've like picked up, or you just want to say to them?
Hey, Lamar, Coach LB, I appreciate you having me. And for all the young coaches out here, continue to work hard, man, and just stay focused and locked in.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I'm glad you could come on. And I want to thank you, viewers, for watching another great show. Stay tuned for the next guest as we get them unmasked. See you next time and stay safe.
Thanks, man.